hand over to you and let you introduce your team.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Sarah, and thank you, Tahina. And it's great to see so many people who we've met before, parents and carers, in this virtual room for us today. So, as Sarah was saying, we've got quite a packed agenda today. So we'll get started, and I'm going to make sure I can. Yes, it's moving on. It's going to move on. There we go. So I'm going to start off with three relatively quick updates. So I should have introduced myself. Elizabeth Fitzpatrick, and I'm the Director for Education and Early Help. And I've got a lot of the SEND services within my area. And you can see other people who will be joining us on this call. So Carla, who will talk to us about SEND reforms. Carla is our Head of Special Education on Needs and Disabilities Integrated Service, SENDIS for short. And then hopefully Alison Stewart will be joining us from the ICB. I say hopefully. Alison has got quite a lot on this morning. So it may be that some of her items, particularly those last three, SEBSAP's Parent Care Research Project, mental health support teams and family support, and ADHD referral pathways, we may need to defer to another time, but hopefully Alison will join us at some point. Alison Jones will also be joining us to talk about the local offer. And then we have Claire Devane, who's going to talk to us about short breaks. So before we go on to the first substantive item, which is about our the SEND reforms, which were published a week or so ago, some quick updates from me. In Merton, we pride ourselves on being relatively small borough, but perfectly formed. But in terms of capacity, we are very glad to have somebody with us for a fixed period of time as our SEND transformation lead. And her name is Jenny Faulkner Hooper. Jenny joined us a month or so ago, and she's helping us to get going on a couple of key things that we know we want to do together with you as parents and carers. Particularly, she's going to be looking at the development of our belonging and inclusion strategy, which of course will be of significant importance to your children and to yourselves, but also helping us to move forward on some of our co-production work. There will be other things that she'll be looking at our processes, bringing information and experiences from other local authorities that she has worked in, which would help maybe shed a new light on some of the things that we have been doing in Merton for a long time, and potentially suggesting better ways that achieve better outcomes for your children and for yourselves. So that's Jenny Faulkner Hooper, and she's with us for the next few months. Then in terms of the autism strategy, just as an update around that. So our all-age autism partnership board, which I chair, is refreshing. I think what we're going to be calling, in fact, our autism and neurodiversity strategy, rather than keeping it just to autism. In that partnership board, we have parent carer representatives. We have representatives from the autistic community. But as I said, it's all age. So it's not just for children and young people, it is also for adults. And we're beginning to work through a draft of that strategy. We had some input from Kids First in terms of feedback from yourselves as parents and carers when we were starting to pull the strategy together. And we really hope that that is landing within that draft strategy. But we will come back to the Kids First and to the Adults First forums when we have more of we're getting towards a final draft. But as I said, on the way, we have your representatives from Kids First joining us in the development of that strategy. The next relatively brief update from me was you may know that we are inspected by Ofsted and CQC like all local areas. And I use the word local area carefully. It's not just the local authority, because it looks at how the SEND partnership, the local area partnership, comes together to improve the experiences and outcomes of children and young people and their families. So all local areas are inspected by Ofsted and CQC. And we had our annual engagement meeting a month or so ago. And again, your representatives from the Kids First Parent Carer Forum were with us in that meeting, representing your views, talking about some of the things that they have been doing with the partnership, the local area partnership, some of the things that you have fed back you want to see improved. So Ofsted and CQC heard those messages really, really clearly, and I'm very grateful to colleagues on the steering group for joining us and being able to talk to so eloquently about the things that matter to you and to your children. We had our letter back following that annual engagement meeting, and that, as often is the case, the letter that comes back basically repeats what we have said to them. So it doesn't, it's not a judgment or anything like that. It's not an inspection. This isn't an inspection. It's just an annual meeting where they have a look at, see what we're doing, keeping an eye on what we're doing, pending an inspection. We are now expecting an inspection. And when that happens, you as parents and carers will be front and foremost in terms of the evidence that Ofsted and CQC gather, because they will want to, they send out a questionnaire to you all. There are opportunities again for Kids First Steering Group to join strategic meetings. They will be talking to individual parents and carers and young people with their consent, of course, about your experiences. So we're expecting that inspection now that we've had that annual engagement meeting. So I'm going to, there's my 3 relatively quick updates from the beginning. And now I'll introduce Carla Finnekin, who, as I said, is our head of SENDIS, and she's going to talk to us about the SEND reforms. And before Carla comes in, I think what I wanted to be able to say is that these have landed relatively recently, as you will have seen. You, I'm sure, have seen things in the national media, maybe things on social media about these proposed SEND reforms, and we're all busy getting to grips with this. I think I probably went to 4 meetings last week where the reforms were discussed as we try to unpick them, and Sarah and Tahina and myself were having a conversation before this meeting started, and really thinking there is the risk of feeling quite overwhelmed by a lot of this because there is so much in here. The white paper is the white paper. It's not the final article. You will know that they, or you may know that they are consulting on what they've put in the white paper. So white paper is not legislation in and of itself. It's a proposal for changes that the government is suggesting. So as I said, there is a consultation, and I'm sure Carla will talk to you about the opportunities there for you. But we also know that there's a lot of detail that is not, even though it feels quite overwhelming, there's a lot of detail which we haven't yet had shared with us about the proposals. So this is, I feel, the first stage of sharing some key information about these SEND reforms with you. So Carla, over to you.
Thank you. If you could, next slide, please. Just to reiterate what Elizabeth said, the white paper, Every Child Achieving and Thriving, was published on the 23rd of February. I think we're all, including parents, professionals, education settings, trying to go through both the white paper but also the open consultation, which is called Putting Children and Young People First. That is an open consultation for 12 weeks and closes on the 18th of May. I have included links at the end of this presentation so you can access it directly, and there's also some very helpful information for parents and carers. The consultation has 39 questions to be answered, and it is a lot of information. So I know that different professionals, different para-carer forums are coming together to consult on the consultation and to provide collective feedback. But as individual parents, I'd also encourage you to have a look at that document, because it will be the devil in the detail of what this means. The SEND reforms are built around the 5 principles we've discussed before, which is early, local, fair, effective and shared. Next slide, please. But I just thought this is taken from Information for Parents and Carers, where it talks about the new system and what it means for you and for young people. So every mainstream setting will be expected to deliver a strong universal offer. You will hear us talk about ordinarily available offer, that is high quality inclusive teaching for all children. So I think we need to think about our language, because we talk about ordinarily available a lot of the time, which I think we may need to start thinking about using universal as our language. And then there's going to be new layers of support. So when children need additional help, they will be able to access 3 flexible layers of support above what is universally available. Just to make a point, the universal offer is going to be developed, and minimum standard guidance of what to expect in every school is going to be published as part of the reforms. And then there will be targeted plus and specialist. Children will be able to easily move through the layers as needs are identified and developed, and they are not sequential. I think there was some concern that you'd have to do target plus before you could get to specialist. You could be involved at specialists straight away, depending on the needs of your children. All schools, including maintained nursery schools and school-based nurseries and colleges, will be legally required to create individual support plans for any child or young person with identified SEND. At the moment, if a young person is on a SEND support plan, they vary across the country. There's not a unified standardised document that education settings use. So this again is going to be a digitised one plan template, so that there's consistency, especially as children move between schools or between boroughs or across the country. Next slide, please. You will have seen in the media that there is what they're talking about inclusion bases, and that they have been ensuring that every secondary school and the same number of primary schools have an inclusion base. The base is a space in mainstream school designed for children with SEND, where they can receive targeted interventions and support, or spend time to help themselves regulate and access their education. The government's saying this will support more children to receive specialist help and target support whilst being part of their local school. On the left-hand side, I've added in that we just need to be clear that the support bases are commissioned and funded by individual settings and multi-academy trusts, and specialist bases are what we have in Merton at the moment, which we call our additional resource provision. So when you hear inclusion bases being talked about, there are actually 2 types of bases that fall under those inclusion bases. Those that the government expects the schools to be running and putting in place, and then obviously there will be local authority funded and commissioned specialist bases. And then the other thing that's been talked about, which I think has caused some confusion, is that they are developing at a national level new specialist provision packages, SPPs. So this is for children and young people with most complex needs beyond what mainstream settings can routinely provide, and the specialist layer of support will include new specialist provision packages. This will set out clearly what support a child or a young person should be receiving. Next slide, please. Education, health and care plans will be retained. I think that is a key factor. However, there will be potential changes as we go through these slides. So EHCPs will give a legal entitlement to more intensive or complex support than mainstream education settings can routinely provide. New EHCPs will be based on new specialist provision packages, putting an end to the postcode lottery in support. So the specialist provision packages are being developed at a national level with a panel of experts. There is some talk that there will be 7 specialist provision packages that would be chosen to best meet the needs of young people. So changes to the EHCPs, they are saying, will move in lockstep with radical improvements to SEND support to ensure that more children and young people have their needs met at targeted and targeted plus. These changes will be phased, and I will go on to the phasing. This is not going to happen overnight. It is a 6-year plan, and the transition to a new system will begin from 2030, so in 4 years' time. They want to make sure that the inclusive mainstream system has been fully built. They obviously have to work on developing the specialist support packages before they make any changes to education, health and care plans. The other concern was that, prior to the reforms being published, what was the role of specialist settings and alternative provision? So these settings are vital for children and young people with the most complex needs, and they will continue to invest and increase the number of special schools and alternative provision places available for children and young people who need them. Next slide, please. There's been some talk about changes to the tribunals, to the complaint system. EHCPs will continue to provide statutory protection for complex needs, and the individual support plans that I talked about earlier at Targeted and Targeted Plus will also have a legal obligation for schools and colleges, and that includes nursery. So there will be changes to legislation over time. Again, there are proposals in the consultation document. There has been some criticism in the media that those proposals are not clear enough, and there were some concerns raised through parent care reforms and also some legal companies around what is happening with the tribunal system. Resolution, school complaint systems will be updated, so complaints about SEND are heard by a panel, including a SEND expert independent of that school. So for children with EHCPs or applying for a needs assessment, the tribunal will remain as an important backstop, and they will improve mediation and dispute resolution, so more disagreements can be resolved without lengthy legal processes. So these slides have been written by the DfE and the government to reassure people that they are trying to embed resolution options at an earlier stage. And then accountability is being looked at. So Ofsted will inspect all settings on how well they support children with SEND, including whether the right support is in place and high expectations are being met. And so the government's also saying they will support and intervene when local authorities and integrated care boards don't meet the expected standards. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned earlier, there will be so there's universal. Government will be publishing universal minimum standards of what every school should deliver. Then you will have the targeted support like small group interventions, individual support plan, will record their needs and the support they're receiving and intended outcomes. That will be the digitised plan that I talked about earlier. Support can flex as your child's needs change, and the help and support they're entitled to receive will be written into the law. So again, that's where the devil will be in the detail about the level of legal recourse and accountability linked to targeted support and targeted plus support. You may have heard people talking about experts at hand. This is going to be a service bringing specialists such as speech and language therapists, educational psychologists, occupational therapists, specialist teachers, behaviour specialists. that needs to be commissioned by the local authority and the ICB, that every school will have access to locally and on demand. So rather than having to buy in or commission, they will have this service available within Merton. Use of inclusion bases, which we talked about earlier, and that is the support base, the first one I was referencing, a dedicated space within the mainstream setting, offering a calmer environment and small group sessions. Short-term placement at alternative provision or special school if needed, to help a child or young person re-engage. So that's something that is in place at the moment around alternative provision. We don't have short-term places at special schools such as Pizzade or Cricket Green, but there is talk within the reforms of the use of our special schools more flexibly, and to think about in-reach and outreach from those schools. So that's something we'll be considering. And the child will have an individual support plan developed with you. So at all stages, targeted support, targeted plus and specialist, the young person and child will have an individual support plan. Next slide, please. And then the third layer that I talked about was, this is for children and young people with the most complex needs. The new specialist provision packages will set out clearly what support the child is entitled to, including education, health and care. And these packages are being created by independent panel of education, health and care experts. There is some talk there will be 7 specialist support packages, provision packages being developed, and they will be based on evidence and delivered across the country, meaning the same high standard of support will be available wherever you live. So I think what they're envisaging is that the assessment of the child's needs will be undertaken, and then it will be decided which specialist provision package is most appropriate, and this could range from including access to therapies, for example, may include placement at a specialist provision. We are all surmising at the moment. This is only us just trying to understand. There are a lot of different meetings coming up where things are being discussed further, but that's what we know at the moment. Next slide, please. Again, this is a slide just to say that EHCPs are not being disbanded. However, it will change in the future, that a child or young person will be assessed to see which package of support meets their needs. So those specialist provision packages I was talking about. And they may receive support from more than one package. So it's not a pick off the shelf. There may be a number of packages that are agreed. Their EHCP will give them a legal right to that support set out in the specialist provision package. And then the plan is to design a new needs assessment process with children, families and experts based on the packages. So the education setting will work with parents, carers and young people on an individual support plan, which will set out how the provision in the EHCP, which is the specialist provision package, will be delivered within that setting. Children with an EHCP may still have a place in a mainstream setting, including those with additionally resourced provisions. Sorry, I just need to delete the chat. As settings will have to be able to deliver all the support set out in the child's EHCP, which will be based on specialist provision packages they have been matched to. We're still trying to make sense of this, and as I said, every child will have an individual support plan. Some children will have an individual support plan and an EHCP, and the specialist provision packages that are in the EHCP. Lots of questions, I'm sure. We have lots of questions as professionals as to how this is going to look. Next slide, please. So I've talked about the digital individualised support plan, that the new EHCPs will be based on the specialist provision packages. They will be digital and standardised across the country as well. It will take the next 3 to 4 years to build the new system and strengthen the ability of mainstream early years settings and colleges to meet the needs of the children. I think one of the key changes is that Targeted and Targeted Plus will have a statutory component to it. There will be a legal, there will be changes, I think, to legislation which will make it stronger, because the worry now is SEND support is so variable across the country. Although there's some very good practice, it's not consistent, and there was no legal dispute resolution or any way of addressing that with schools, and it felt like it was a battle all the time. So there will definitely be legislation changes around Targeted and Targeted Plus, not just within the EHCP cohort of children. The first cohort's starting a new phase in September 2030. For example, if your child is in year 3 in September 2029, they will not transition to the new system until they move into the secondary school. So the plan is, instead of how we read it, it may change after the consultation, is that an EHCP will be reviewed at a phase, so a key stage rather than yearly, and the individual support plans will be reviewed more frequently, but we're waiting to see what comes out. If your child is in year 7 in September 29, they will not transition to the new system until they move into post 16. So I think there's a lot of work to do to understand this over the coming few years, but there will be no changes to the current EHCPs until at least 2030. Next slide, please. So I've included the timelines. Again, this has been published by the government. So now until 2030, we've got the consultation open, closes in May 18, I said. Early investments following 3.7 billion for tens of thousands more SEND places and 4 billion in early identification needs and support. 26-27, so this year and next year, they have already released a national SEND training program, which is beginning for all staff. Best Start family hubs are being rolled out nationally, and draft specialist provision packages. We are hoping that they will be published in autumn 2026, so we can understand what these specialist provision packages actually look like. There is a panel of experts. I don't know the names of the people on the panel yet. We're trying to find out more information about who is on the panel and their parent care input into those development of the specialist provision packages. 27-28, the final specialist provision packages will be published, and they will design the new needs assessment process based on the packages, working with children, families and experts to ensure assessments involve professionals who know the child, the parent's voice is heard, and there is a nationally consistent process without parents feeling pressured to pay for assessments or costly diagnosis. As you know, some families do provide as part of an EHC needs assessment, their own private reports. They're hoping that won't be needed because the assessment process will be more rigorous and identify the provision needed. Next slide, please. In 2029-30, the changes, so the changes are going to be phased. So for children having their needs assessed for the first time, the new needs assessment will begin from September 29. So in 3 and a bit years' time. For children and young people with an existing EHCP, we will, at the new system will phase in from 2030. Transitions will then only happen as children naturally move between primary and secondary school, or from secondary school to college. Every child with a special school place in September 2029 will be able to stay in a special school until they finish their education. That's what they're saying at the moment. And then from 2030 onwards, they are hoping that all reforms will be in place. Children will receive earlier intervention and support in the mainstream, reducing the need for lengthy legal processes, and children with complex needs will have EHCPs backed by the new national standards, the new, as I was talking about, the new provision packages. And then in 2030, the first children will transition from the old system to the new system. Next slide, please. So for us as a partnership, parents, carers, local authority, there is a lot for us to be thinking about and for doing. Like I said, I encourage everybody to complete responses to the Send Reform consultation. My next slide has a link to it. So when these get circulated, you can go in through that. As a partnership, we are also, and Kids First is involved in this, we are completing the partnership maturity assessment. So this is to think, how ready are we for these reforms? And it is looking at our readiness to start thinking about how we move forward in this way. So that maturity assessment is being completed in the next few weeks and will feed into the fact that as a local area, so that's education, health and care, parents, carers, young people, need to draft a Send Reform action plan. So we need to make sure we include parents and carers in this, and we do have Kids First reps when we establish what our reform action plan is going to look like. Next slide, please. So the links I've included is the Every Child Achieving and Thriving and Send consultation, supporting information. So this has a parent and a young person link in it, where you can have an easy read guide to the consultation, or you can have the full documentation. So that's a direct link for that. Then Send Reform, Putting Children and Young People First. That's another very helpful link on more information about the reforms. And then the final link is the actual consultation. It goes through Citizen Space. So once you've read through everything, you can go in through the third link and submit your views on the 39 questions. Next slide, please. So I don't know whether I won't necessarily be able to answer all your questions. Are we waiting till the end of everybody's sessions for Q&A? Sorry, Elizabeth, I think you're on mute.
Apologies. Thank you, Carla. Tahina, can I make a suggestion that we take a break at this point in time and do the questions in the chat? And we might even take 2 breaks today. Brilliant. Thanks, Tahina. So, Carla.
Yes, I will carry on, shall I? With my
lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to try to move it on.
These are very short updates, really. Very short updates. Just to let you know that we're doing a review of our commissioned therapies. This is aside from the Send reforms. So the London Borough of Merton have their own speech and language therapy service, who sits within Sendus with me, and the ICB, Integrated Care Board, also commissions speech and language therapy services. At the moment, we're reviewing those services to look at the current service delivery across 0 to 25, and to look at alignment to ensure that there are improved services within both the early years and post 16, and smooth transitions at each stage of education. At the moment, we commission separately. We're looking at whether there are opportunities to jointly commission speech and language therapy services. It's early days. We've had 1 meeting to look at the current contracts and commissioning arrangements, identify areas or gaps. For our post-16 cohort, we spot purchase speech and language therapy. There's not an overall service that we commission to do that. There could be some areas for improvement there and consistency. So I just wanted to let you know that we are looking at that, because parents have talked to us about the difference of provision in early years versus when they're at school, and some of the gaps. So I will continue to keep you updated, but I just wanted you to know about that piece of work, really.
Thanks very much, Carla. So yes, another update from you, Carla.
Yeah, and then this is my last one, I think. Yes. So you'll be sick of me. Next slide, please. So for those children who have an education, health and care plan, we need to undertake a review of their EHCP every year, and there are some clear legal timescales around that. as we know across the country, but also in Merton, is we're working very hard. Very hard to improve the reissuing of any amended EHCPs within those timescales. So one of the issues that came up was that we weren't always getting the right information discussed at the annual review. We delegate the annual review meeting to schools and education settings, and so I got feedback from parents, carers, and schools, and Kids First helped us to draft some amended annual review paperwork. And that's the paperwork that goes out to schools to complete, to send back to the local authority for us to decide whether to amend the plan, propose to cease the plan, or issue a no change letter following the annual review. What we were hoped and are hoping through this paperwork pilot is that we will get more correct information back. We will have more up-to-date information from the young person themselves as part of the annual review. And we produced, with the help of Kids First, guidance on the annual review process for both education settings and for parents. We're trialling the new paperwork with 11 schools. And there is a parent, carer, and young person feedback link that is helping us to understand how the pilot is going. We're reviewing the pilot. So we started in January. We were reviewing in April. And we need to think about, did the paperwork help? Didn't it help? And if it did help, or are there any changes that need to be made? We will then set a go live date. But until April, I don't have a direction of travel yet of whether it is going to be rolled out across all our schools in Merton, because we want to give it a good trial. We have got initial parent carer feedback and young people feedback, which I think is quite helpful. Very early days, so very small numbers, and the feedback may change as we go through the months, but this was from the end of January. Next slide, please. So at the annual review, or a parent or a carer or a young person could be sent a link, and they complete a very short survey, which is done through our partners in Vision 360, who some of you will have heard me talk about before, who does our quality assurance tool. They also do our annual review quality assurance tool. So these are quite clear questions. You're aware of the annual review meeting taking place. This is for the young person. They had the opportunity to be part of the meeting and share their views, because we're really keen, as you know, to make sure that children and young people are invited and contribute to the annual reviews. The views and feelings were seen as important. Someone spoke to me to help me understand what was discussed in the meeting and let me know if any changes needed to be made. And then the young person felt the annual review meeting was positive. So initial feedback, we're talking very small numbers. This is 6 young people, but I was pleased to see that all of them had the option to be part of the meeting, and their views and feelings were seen as important. Most of the feedback is strongly agree, and there were no other comments. This is from January. Like I said, we've had all of February now, so we'll collate that along with the March and April feedback. Younger children, there was a meeting they knew there was a meeting with their parents and other adults. They got to share things about me, what I would like, don't like, etc. Again, 33% agreed, 1 mostly agreed, and 1 didn't really agree. Someone talked to me after the meeting. 3 of them said they didn't know, and any other comments. So that was 3 younger children who completed the form. Next slide.
I'll just say, I'm coming in, Carla. It's the first time I've seen this. I think this is really good feedback for schools, isn't it? Really, to sort of take back in terms, particularly following up from the meeting. About how they can work with young, have that meeting after the meeting at the very least. So I'm just trying to move it forward. There we go.
And then 11 parents and carers who took part in the pilot in January completed the form. Again, informed in advance of the annual review meeting, and that they were asked for their views, so that was good, positive feedback, informed of the purpose of the annual review meeting. Majority agreed. Views and feelings were seen as important. Again, strongly agreed and agreed. The annual review meeting had clear outcomes. Strongly agreed. And the annual review meeting was positive. Then there's the opportunity to put in other comments. So again, OT to be included, reflect, and have to go back over on a live document. Extra time is needed to go over everything in the EHCP, and that is correct. We need to make sure that schools give enough time to review the full EHCP, because that was one of the issues. We weren't reviewing the EHCP from A to K sections. It would often just focus on maybe B or section F. Legally, every section of the plan should be reviewed at the annual review. So we're hoping this new paperwork will support the schools to do that. Next slide. I think that's it for me. I don't know if this is another. There was a few comments in the chat. Or wait till the end.
We'll wait now. We'll wait till our next break, and I think we'll do the local offer if that's okay, Carla.
That's absolutely fine with me. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Alison in the meeting? Alison.
I am here.
Oh, but you're having to go, Alison.
I'm having to go. Yes, I was just putting a little bit in the chat. Would it be helpful, Elizabeth, for me just to sort of summarise our priority areas of working?
That would be really helpful, Alison. Thank you. So this is not I will just take this. I can't take it down. It's not the local offer. Alison talking about the ICB priority areas. Thank you, Alison.
Okay, thank you. Morning, everybody. And apologies. The ICB laptops don't like Zoom, so I'm on my phone. Okay, so as people may know, South West London ICB is undergoing a fairly major restructure that is now out to consultation to all staff, and we'll come back to the next meeting with sort of more detailed feedback on that. Regardless of that, however, we are working with Merton Parent Carer Forum around 3 particular projects. So one is looking at parent carer input to the medical element of EHC needs assessment, and this is really looking at how we improve the triage around which families receive an appointment with a paediatrician and the quality of advice that's submitted through that. The second element links into work around emotional well-being and mental health support, with really looking at 3 particular cohorts. So those children who are managing in school but not at home, those who are currently not able to go to school, and a third cohort will be those in independent settings, which includes the out-of-borough group. The third area Carla's mentioned already is the work that we're doing around therapies and the alignment of the therapy services, so CLCH and London Borough of Merton. We've had one workshop already, which is really looking to bring people together. So as Carla said, we've got that sort of smooth transition between the 2 services. So very happy to come back and give further updates at another time.
Thank you very much indeed, Alison. I know it's very busy for you, so very grateful for you coming in. Thanks a lot.
Good to see you. See you later. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. And is Alison Jones on the call?
Yes, I'm here.
Fantastic, Alison. So to come to you on the local offer?
Yep. Can you do the slides, please?
I can, if I can make it. There we go.
So hello, I'm Al. I don't know if Laura or Dan are here actually, so it's possible they might be, but possible they're not. So I'm Alison Jones and I'm Head of Service for Early Years, Family Wellbeing and Early Help, and there's been some work taking place through the local offer steering group and more broadly across our service directories. Many of you will know that the local offer sits within a suite of directories that also includes the Family Information Directory and also Family Services Directory, and also Young Merton and the local offer. I think there's been ongoing feedback. There's sort of 2 issues or 2 things that we get feedback on. One is around the look and feel, and the other is around the accuracy of the information. And we see those as 2 slightly separate work streams. So what we've been looking at is a new look and feel. And then looking, sorry, I've got to get rid of the chat that comes up right in front. And then looking at the launch of the new look and feel, and also looking at the sort of tidy up, particularly around the local offer, and trying to make that much more easy to navigate. We're looking at much more interactive video content video content, and that is in progress at the moment. And then next steps. So next slide, please, Elizabeth. So this is the mock-up of what the new landing pages and the service directories will look at. We've done quite a lot of consultation with families and young people, and looking at, you know, the kind of improvements. So I think it's really important, even though if we have gone for a new look and feel following on feedback, and I think this already looks much more of an improvement from what we have already. The next part of this is making sure that it's all kind of clickable through, and that parents, families, professionals can navigate the information, and that the information is accurate and up to date. But this will be the new look and feel. There's a calendar on the page as well, and we'll be working through the implementation program just to make sure that we've got all of these components up to date. So again, this is just the mock-ups that we've been given from our web provider, who provides our service directory, and hopefully this will make things much clearer. So we'll be categorising slightly differently. We've worked with partners to better understand how people want to serve across the, you know, how they want to kind of access information across the different categories. And I do appreciate this is quite small, but there has been quite a lot of testing with various stakeholders really to look at the directory pages. What we will have is a directory page. It's been a bit muddled around things like local services, things that people can access locally, and then also information, advice and guidance. So we've tried to really separate that out, and things like national organisations to come off the kind of Merton local offer, for example, and sit more within a kind of national organisation support. So hopefully that will start to categorise and make things much easier for people to find. So there'll be the directory page, the service page and the IAG page, and making those a little bit more specific, but also more easy to identify. Because currently you can put in words and you'll be given a lot of information, and not all of it is services. Some of it's around information, advice and guidance. So this is the just the timeline. So we're looking at go live around on Monday, the 20th of April. So that's just about 6 weeks away, but there will be quite a lot of testing, which potentially could shift that timescale moving forwards. And then there'll be a hard launch around the summertime, where we also will be launching our new Best Start family hubs and literature and promotions around that new offer. So I think that might be it for us on the slides. Oh, sorry, no, some video content. I don't know if that video is going to go live on there, but this is that. It does look like that maybe that's not come through. But we've been looking at some. Or is it going to come through? So the idea is that we'll be making a lot of video content, so that instead of having to scroll through sort of written text, that there'll be video content around all sorts of services, information, advice and guidance, and that should make the local offer more accessible, because people can just press that content. And I think we're working on looking at having that translated into different languages as well. So that's also work in progress, but we have had some people trained in the ability to do the video content. So that means that some of our staff will be able to do much more kind of snappier videos, much more in real time. We'll be able to go into provision, talk to families and be able to get that information up much more quickly than we've been able to do before, because we've often used external kind of creators to do any video content. Yeah, so it looks like the video there was around our 2-year take up. So and then the next steps here, which I've just spoken about, really is the cleansing of service pages, and it's that really, once we've done the look and feel, that's a kind of start and end piece of work. But the ongoing cleansing of service pages, keeping the content up to date, and the development of new information, existing information, is the ongoing task, and that is always a challenge for us. And if people are finding misinformation or information that isn't clear to them, if you could just email us at fsd at merton.gov.uk, because the more feedback we get, then the easier it is for us to maintain that. Because a lot of people will say, oh, it's out of date, or it's this or it's that. But if we've got examples, or you can send us those things in, then we can work on that. But we have got quite a big piece of work taking place at the moment to try and clean it all up and make it as accurate as possible and as user friendly as possible.
Thank you, Alison. Can you put that email into the chat, please, so for parents and carers to be able to use? And I'm presuming there'll be more information coming out through the local offer bulletin or newsletter.
Yeah.
And just checking, if parents aren't getting that, is there a way to sign up for that local offer bulletin?
The local offer bulletin from parents currently goes to parents who are on our disability database and have an M card. But I think maybe, I'm sorry, does Merton, do people on this meeting receive the local offer newsletter?
So, Alison, I think the only way that would happen is if you shared it with Tahina and Sarah.
Oh, Trace, somebody's, that might be because yeah, let me do that. So Sarah does get the emails, the newsletter. So our assumption is that gets disseminated then outwards from. Great. Okay, so lots of people are not getting the newsletter. So I don't know whether Merton Maincap, it would be really, Kids First, helpful if that could be disseminated to the members of Kids First.
Yeah, after the meeting, is it okay if I just email you and see if our new emails are on the local offer bulletin, just because both our emails have changed, haven't they, Sarah?
Yeah, and when I said I get it, I do get it, but I get it as a parent. I don't get it as a professional.
Okay, so we need to send it to probably to
if you can add us to the mailing list, then that'd be really helpful. Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's a great bulletin, even if I say so myself. It's a very useful.
I'll get your emails to Charles, and then we can get that sent over.
Lovely. Thank you. Okay. So I think this is the last substantive item on the agenda. And so, Claire, over to you for short breaks.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm just going to give a brief update on the short breaks review and where we are at. So as you'll see, our first slide is just really a summary of the changes that we're aiming to introduce from the 1st of November this year. So we are aiming to remove one of two assessment processes, which will make it easier and quicker for families to access short breaks. We're going to introduce an online booking system, and we're aiming to increase the volume and the range in the short breaks offer. Our next slide.
There we go.
Okay, so this is really changes or proposed changes to our targeted short breaks offer. And when I say targeted, this, what I mean is children and young people that will need an enhanced sort of staffing level to take part in activities. So if we had a group of 12 young people, they would need sort of 3 to 4 staff ratio. So in the future model, currently there's an assessment process, but in the future model, what we'll be asking is for parents to provide evidence that their child is eligible. So we'll be asking them to either send in or upload evidence of DLA or PIP, universal credit with a child element and additional disabled child element, or a supporting evidence from a professional that is known to the family. If families have already sent in proof when they applied for an M card, which is Merton's ID and concession card, they won't need to do that again. So then once eligibility is confirmed, parents will be given access to our new online booking system, where they'll be able to book activities directly with Merton's commissioned short breaks providers. Our next slide then just briefly talks about some of the provision. So we are at this targeted level, we are developing a small grants short breaks program, where providers are going to be submitting applications. We know that there's a lot of experienced providers out there, and they are keen to deliver activities as part of Merton's short breaks offers, because we've done our soft market test. So then we'll be awarding grants to providers to deliver group-based activities that could be running after school, at the weekends, and during the school holiday periods. And children will be able to access those activities free of charge. The second part of the slide, as you can read, it says we've got no final decision yet on the proposal to remove the option of direct payments as part of the targeted short breaks offer going forward. But what we do know is that the proposed management of the existing short direct payments at a targeted level, those packages will transfer as is to the Children with Disabilities team from the 1st of November, whilst there's further consideration given about the what the offer will look like in the future. Because we're aware that there's an awful lot of changes, so we'll be introducing some of them, and then we'll be monitoring and reviewing before making decisions on any further changes. Our fourth slide then is around our specialist offer. So this is for our children and young people with the most complex needs, and access to this offer will remain unchanged. So it's an assessment by the Children with Disabilities team. And then during their assessment, the provision that could be offered could be support in the home, out in the community, direct payments, group-based provision like Brightwell, our overnights. And we are working to increase this offer, our specialist group offer, so more families can access this level of support. And then really our last slide just sets out our time frame. We know that the first thing we have to do is to complete some staff consultations, as we do have council staff impacted by these proposals. But the aim will be from April onwards, we'll be communicating with parents and professionals and preparing them for the changes. So we'll be writing out, we'll be holding workshops to make sure that everyone is clear about the model going forwards. So existing families, what they need to do, and they'll be supported in any sort of transition arrangements. We will have sufficient staff and resource there. We'll also make sure then from April onwards, we'll be developing and testing our new online booking system. We'll be launching the grants programme for targeted activities and evaluating the applications, and then announcing successful providers and mobilising those providers. And as I mentioned, we also know we need to increase that specialist group offer. So that's the group-based offer from Brightwell. And we're looking at the overnights. And we will be aiming to go live with our new offer from the 1st of November 26.
I think that's it. Thank you very much indeed, Claire. And actually, I'm going to stop sharing there, and I would suggest, Tahina, could we stop the recording, then we can go to questions again.